This Interac tutorial will cover master file maintenance. Master file maintenance is used for adding, changing, deleting employees, vendors, customers, and such, but it can do so much more. Ironically, it is one of the most used areas of Interac, yet one of the most underutilized areas of Interac. This video will cover basic file maintenance operations, such as add, changing, and deleting. This is all many firms ever do. Customizing field names to fit your company, copying records and when to do such. Two types of inquiries built into master file maintenance. Customizing an add change screen by company if you're a multi-company. Auto-replacing fields. Defaulting values. Looking at totals, such as how many employees do you have. Header dates. And security. It is my goal to show you at least one technique which you will find useful. First, we're going to look at basic operations, such as adding, changing, and deleting. We are in payroll using the basic interface, which means we will not see any file names. We'll proceed to employee maintenance. And here we are with the basic master file maintenance screen in payroll. We will add an employee, and we can enter an employee number that we've determined to add this employee. Or if we have not set an employee number yet, we can look at the employees and see where this particular person would fit in. Or an option is that we can have it automatically assign the next employee number. This way you don't have to figure out your employee numbers, and they will be in sequential order. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to have it assign the next employee number. 1401, our last employee in the list we just saw was 1400. We're going to click OK. We'll discuss the limited option in a few minutes in another section of this video. We'll click OK, and we'll enter the employee name. Now in payroll, it happens to be you can put in the last name, semicolon first name, and that way it will come up in alphabetic sorts based on the last name here, but we're going to go ahead and put it in the way the rest of them were in this file. Put in some basic information down at the social security number area, and I'm going to put it in digits. No dashes or anything. Interac automatically assumed the dashes for us. I'll come over to taxes, and you can enter a state from the drop down, or if you know 5 is California, you can enter that directly and save the time to use the drop down. And I'll come over and set our state code to be California also. Interac is all about efficiency, so anytime you happen to know the code number for something, you can save the time from having to go to the drop down. There, we've added our employee. Let's now make a change to that employee. We'll click on change, and we can enter the employee number if we remember it or know it, or we can click the drop down and get a list which is sorted in employee number order, or we can click the drop down by name and get a list which is sorted based on the name. You can see the little caret here which shows which column is being sorted by. Or if we wish to look up by social security number, we actually could click on this social security number, and if I know the social security number, if you recall it was a 555, we don't see it on the list here. I can enter 555 and Interac jumps to that section of the list. Here we are on the employee, and we can make whatever changes we wish to make and then click OK. As I mentioned, we can bring it up by employee number or by name, and really you get to the same pop-up with either one. It's just that when you click the employee number one, it's automatically in name, number, in employee number order, or if you click this one next to name, it's automatically in name number order, but you can really go to any of them you wish and click on the column you wish it to be sorted by. We will now look at deleting employee, something you might do after year-end close if you wish to delete employees which were not automatically deleted through the year-end process. And we have the same drop-down information as we saw before, and I'll go ahead and delete the employee that we just entered a few moments ago. And when you do that, it shows you a confirmation window with the employee number and employee name, and also shows you what the year-to-date gross is. And of course, we wouldn't want to delete somebody that had a balance here. I'll go ahead and do that. Employees deleted. Let's look at how to customize our file maintenance field description for your company. And this greatly simplifies our screens. We are going to return to employee maintenance and look at the fields as they are when the file is first created. I returned the labels to be their default values. We're going to go to the second tab, and you'll see, for example, in field 81, the label is miscellaneous data 1, and here we are storing driver's license number. Well, this can be somewhat cryptic, perhaps okay for someone that uses the system on a regular basis, but it's much friendlier to have this label be a meaningful label, particularly when someone else is filling in or cross-training and so forth. So we're going to look at where to change miscellaneous data 1 to be driver's license number. And note that we're on field 81, and that will make our next step easier. So we will leave master file maintenance, and this is a company-wide type thing that we control in user maintenance, and so we are going to come down to the titles file, or if you're using the enhanced interface, this would be payroll user file 1. Either way, it gets us to the same place. And I'd like to point out that if you're in a multi-company situation, this file can be shared amongst all the companies if you wish to maintain one common set of data, or each company can have its own unique set of information, thereby customizing each company to be completely different. But that's a side note. So we're going to come over to our payroll master file names, and 81 is not on our first screen of names, so we'll go to our second one, and here it is here. This is where it's retrieving miscellaneous data 1. So we're going to type in driver's license. And I'll put a pound sign here. We'll click OK. We'll return to employee maintenance. Pull up employee 10 again. Go to our second tab, and you can see it now says driver's license number. So this greatly simplifies data entry in master file maintenance. We also have a number of codes up here. For example, suppose we want miscellaneous code 2, what's in field 30, to be whether somebody is 401k eligible or not. So, and note that the default value is blank or 0. So we're going to change code 30, field 30, back over to master file, user file maintenance, to the titles file again. And here's 30 right here. Now, kind of a trick you can use is we'll put in 401k. I'm going to abbreviate eligible. And I'm going to say 0 equals no, comma, 1 equals yes. So that turns it into a little bit of a help screen here too. We'll accept that. Back to employee maintenance. over to the second tab, and you can see on field 30 our description. So the default value 0 means no. So when this person becomes eligible, you would drop a 1 in here. And again, this is a user-defined field that has no stated purpose in Interac. The purpose of it is purpose of these are for you to use any way you wish to use them. You'd find them in most files, such as accounts payable master, accounts receivable master, general ledger master, and so forth. And you can use them as you wish, and then you could run reports against these. This completes our look at labeling fields in master file maintenance, something that can make data entry much easier. We will next look at copying records, which is used on rare occasions or perhaps never used. For an example, you may wish after the end of the year to renumber your employees. You would copy an employee number from one to another and then delete the original. Renumbering does not change historical transactions, and careful consideration is required when you're using this copy feature. It was something that was added based on user requests some years ago. We are in employee file maintenance. We will come up to the copy button, and we'll copy employee 10 to employee number 2000. And that's all there is to it. We come to take a look. Employee 2000 is now here, completely duplicated. As I mentioned a few moments ago, great care must be taken when copying. Employee 10 is here with all of his balances for the year and so forth. The same employee 2000 is now here, the same person with all their balances and such. So great care must be taken when you're using the copy feature. We'll now look at the first method of doing inquiries in file maintenance. You can easily customize an inquiry for your needs, and this is often used if you're completing government or other forms. Your custom field choices, which we'll be looking at in a moment, are retained in this file, so you can set your inquiry and come back and use it again another day. The first inquiry method we're going to look at utilizes these two buttons right here, Inquiry and Inquiry Fields. First, we'll click on Inquire and choose an employee number. And here we see all fields, a lot of fields. And this can be useful. We also have the option to go to the next employee or the previous employee down below. But I'm going to end. This is pretty bulky. The next button lets us set up fields that we wish to look at. And we can choose whatever we wish in any order we wish. And this can be very useful for preparing a form for the government or something. And if you know the field number, you can just key it in. I know 203 is year-to-date gross. So let's set that. We'll come back to do an inquire. And when we click OK, we now see our limited fields. And toggle over to all fields and see them all. Or back to limited fields. Perhaps I want to see driver's license number. We can come over here, add 81, which is what we set up, and you can see it's retrieving our custom description. Back over to Inquire, and we've now added driver's license number. I mentioned that what you've set up in inquiry fields stays with the file. I'll demonstrate that. We will exit employee file maintenance and come back into it, and we will see that our fields are still here. Now, if you want to inquire on a prior year's file or at a prior time, the fields would not be there, and you could certainly go ahead and set them up for that particular file. However, in our live file, what we save for our inquiry fields will remain with us. Next, we're going to look at what I think is one of the most important things you can do in Interac to make the system efficient and simpler to use. That's tailoring the file maintenance screens to be the fields you utilize in the order that you would like to see them. This increases efficiency, makes the system more error-free, and your custom field choices are retained with the file. So you really only have to do the setup one time and then make changes as you need to make them. Just as we saw the Inquiry Fields button worked with the Inquire button here, the Input Fields button works with both the Change and the Add button over to the left. And I have some things set now on page 1, and we'll see what this means in a few moments. And here are a variety of fields, which I've already chosen. And you can see they're not necessarily in field number order. Here's 47, 48, 301, 23. They're in whatever order I wish to see them. We'll click OK. Go to make a change. I'll enter the employee number as normal. Usually we would click OK, but now I'm going to click Limited. And when we click Limited, our screen is filtered, organized based on what we've done under input fields. And you can now see I have a one-page screen with the data I want to see in the order I wish to see it. And the drop-downs are here when appropriate and so forth. Now let's see how to tailor it and how to use multiple screens. I'm going to come to Input Screens, Input Fields, and I'm going to clear them all. And I'll just put a couple things here. And we can come down here and enter other information. I'm going to put in 47, and again we could be using the drop downs to find these if we wish to. And so I'm organizing some basic information on page 1, some tax related information on page 2, and I could add the federal deductions and so forth and down here, and then we could put other pays or whatever we wish here, and maybe HR related information here. So we can organize information onto multiple pages. Click OK. Those are now saved. When I come make a change, again click Limited, and now we see page 1 has what we've selected for page 1. Screen 2 now has what we've set for screen 2. So this allows you to tailor your add and change screens to be organized in the fashion you wish. Normally, if you come to make a change to an employee, we have 11 buttons of information, and some Interac user someplace is using something on every one of these screens. Nobody uses them all. This way, you can set the system through the update fields, input fields, to be precisely what you want to have for your company. And this greatly simplifies file maintenance. Your investment here in time in tailoring the screen to work the way you want it to work will pay you a dividend from now on when you are doing file maintenance. The Totals button can yield useful information, such as how many W-2s to order, or your company status for various criteria. Perhaps there is something where your employee count has to be less than 50 or greater than 50 or something like that. This is a quick place for you to find how many employees you have in the system. To view the totals, we click the Totals button. Employees before, added, deleted, and ending count. Not much to it. We are now going to look at our second method of doing an inquiry from within Master File Maintenance, and that is scrolling. We can easily scroll through specified fields, and this is especially useful when we're trying to spot certain conditions. To scroll, we click on the Scroll field, and I'm going to scroll through Social Security number. This is something I like to do at the end of the year. And we can just sort of double check and make sure that everybody has a Social Security number properly filled in. Or we can pick any field we wish to scroll through. In General Ledger, before doing a year-end close, I like to scroll through the class of the account. And when accounts are added, they default a balance sheet account. And I like to, which is a 1, I like to take a look and make sure that the 1s are all where they should be, and 2s exist for the income statement accounts. This way, if an account was added during the year and inadvertently the wrong type was dropped in, this is the field that's looked at for the closing entry in General Ledger at year end. So again, by scrolling through field 3, we can very quickly see that everything is in order. So the scroll field is a really handy quick inquiry where you can choose any field you wish and scroll right through them. Let's look at some auto-replace magic. And auto-replacing is really similar to plugging a value in fields. You can make sweeping changes with very little effort. And there's 2 basic types of replace. One is a manual replace, where you stop at each employee or each vendor or whatever master file you happen to be in, or an automatic replace, which sweeps through the entire system. You can have several options while you're making a replace. That can be by a limited range or by testing on certain conditions. And you really need to back up your file before doing an auto replace. If you have 5 employees, repairing an auto replace mistake might not be too bad. But if you have thousands of employees, as some Interac users do, then the penalty is quite severe if you've made an error auto replacing. So you really want to back up your file before you auto replace. We will click on the auto replace button, and we have several sections to look at. First is, are we going to manually auto replace, meaning we're going to stop automatically at certain fields on an individual employee, in the case of employee file maintenance where we are, or we're going to have it automatically sweep through the entire file and make the change. Here we can choose up to 5 fields, and if we wish, we can specify a value or a field or whatever we wish to replace it with. We'll illustrate this in a few moments, and enter a field or value. Then we can do a limited range if we wish to do certain ranges of employees or general ledger account or whatever. Or we can supply some tests, and we can put in up to 2 tests. We can test if this is equal to that, then here's the value, and we can have an additional and or test down here. So let's quickly look at how to manually make a field change. And I'm going to simply choose the state code as an example. I'm not going to put a value in. We're going to do manual, no tests, no ranges. When I click OK, it stops at the first person, shows the field number, and we can put a new value in. It's showing down here, it currently has a 5 for Oregon, and as it stands, we're not going to make a change, and we could skip this person, and it automatically goes to the next person. Now, we didn't have to go specify an employee number. It automatically went to the next person, which is much faster than our normal file maintenance would be when we're making a change. We are going to enter CA for California, and when I press tab, you'll see here's the new value. Click OK, and automatically pops to the next person. This is an easy way to go through an entire file and make a change to a particular field without having to click change, enter the employee number, and so forth. Let's now look at doing an automatic replace where we use the automatic mode. So we'll first come to scroll, and I'm going to look at the union number field, and we can see we have union 0, 720, 198, and so forth. If we scroll through field 31, the hourly rate, we will see that those employees that were in union 720 have a variety of wage rates. So let's automatically replace them all to be the same rate as an example of how the automatic feature works. we're going to take field 31, put in a value of $23 an hour, and we are going to test that the union code is equal to a value of 720. And when we click OK, bingo, it's done that fast. So now let's do a scroll through field 31, and we will see that we now have $23 an hour for the employees that were in Union 720. So the auto replace feature can make very sweeping changes in a very rapid fashion in your file. I've often seen it used for pull up an employee, for setting ACA codes. With very little effort, you can fill in the default values for your company and then go back and manually change the ones that are different. Defaulting values is another way you can gain some efficiency when you're adding multiple records of a similar type. For example, you might be adding multiple vendors in a new town, or multiple employees in a new area, or multiple general ledger accounts of a certain type. Default values are not retained when exiting. Let's take a look. Let's use an example where we're going to add a crew in Anaheim, California. We'll set default values, and we now see that we have the same screens as we normally have when we're adding or changing an employee. I will enter Anaheim, California, and I'm now going to hop over to taxes and set this to be California, set this to be California. Really, we just want to set the elements that are going to be common for everyone. So now, when we add employees, it will automatically look at our default values. When I click OK, we can see it's now defaulted Anaheim. Now we could change this if we wish to. We can change any element that defaulted, but it has the state in. Under the taxes, we've saved the effort of entering California in several places, and also saved the effort of entering it here. So you really need to have a number of employees or number of vendors or number of customers to make it worth your while to set the default. But if you have 3 or 4, it's worth the effort and makes the system more efficient for doing this type of maintenance. As I mentioned when we led into this section, the default values disappear when you exit the file. Wouldn't really be good to have values dropping in fields you hadn't recalled you had set defaults on. So if we exit the file and come back into it and check the default values, you see that they're now no longer present. Let's next discuss header dates. They're safe to look at, but extremely dangerous to make changes to. Normal Interac processing will change the dates automatically. As mentioned a moment ago, the header dates are fine to look at to see where the system is at if you have a question, if you've performed a month-end close procedure or whatever, but really taboo to make any changes to, because Interac depends on these dates being accurate as they are in order to do its background procedures. Changing these dates is very bad. I would like to point out that if you're using the basic interface, the period began date is automatically shown in the upper right-hand corner of most screens. I'd like to make a few security comments. If you're using Interac Security, access can be controlled to deny access, allow you to inquire only, or give you full access. We have been logged in as a full user of payroll, therefore all buttons are available. I'm going to log out and return in as an inquiry-only user. I'm now logged out and logged back in as an inquire-only user, and you can see certain buttons are now grayed out. Interac Security at Work. In summary, much can be done in master file maintenance to customize Interac and make it much more efficient by how you label fields. We saw with changing the description to driver's license, customizing the layout of your screens, where we organized basic information on one screen, tax information on another screen, and so forth. And efficiencies can be gained by using the two types of inquiries that we looked at, as well as auto replace, where you can plug in a certain value based on certain conditions, and learning to use the hotkeys, and this is the topic of a separate video. Thank you for watching.